Sure.
So, we have here a reproduction of one of the most important historical documents of all time. Common Sense, addressed to the inhabitants of America. Written by an Englishman, January 10th, 1776, Thomas Paine, although it was published anonymously at the time. They didn't know who wrote it originally.
Yeah.
So, addressed to the inhabitants of America, meaning the people who have come to call America their home. But why is it called a common sense? What does that mean?
I feel like common, something that makes sense in common. Like something is between, like we deal together or something that makes sense.
We have something in common, like we both do it. Okay. And so if something is generally common, it means lots of people do it or have it or believe it or, right? Something that makes sense commonly and is a term. It usually means the kind of thing that everybody knows but never really thinks about.
Oh.
And so calling something common sense will often be like the whole justification or explanation. It's like saying, well, duh. Like it's common sense that you should wash your hands after you go to the bathroom. Duh. Everybody knows that. But why? Right? Is it obvious? If it's obvious, does that mean everyone has always done it that way? They always knew that it made sense and it was obvious? Can you imagine a world where people didn't know that, where it wasn't common sense to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom?
Definitely not. It was it wasn't a moment that everybody started to do it. Like they for example, now after COVID, everything changed or shift to something more like wash your hands, you know?
Okay, so we became like more sensitive to washing your hands. But what about for hundreds of years and hundreds of generations before that? Did people always know to wash their hands after going to the bathroom? People have always been going to the bathroom, obviously, right? All I know is it's like we just started doing that recently, right? It'd be weird, right? So do you think for most of human history, people have... Hello.
Good morning.
Here's the question of the day. Do you think for most of human history, people have been washing their hands after going to the bathroom?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Or whatever the equivalent of washing your hands would have been under any given circumstances, because obviously we didn't always have indoor plumbing and soap and nice fancy things like that. Do they make even any crude attempt to clean their hands?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think nowadays it's even to find everywhere liquid soap and towel just to dry your hands.
Well, yeah. Now in every kitchen and bathroom you find soap and towels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In many places you even find hand sanitizer. Like now when I go to the doctor or hospital or something, it's often hand sanitizer because it's a place with lots of germs, and so it's like extra precautions just in case someone here is sick. Sanitize your hands, keep yourself safe, keep other people safe. So it's common sense. It's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about if you asked a doctor, hey, a surgeon in particular, do you think you should wash your hands in between each surgery, like before you operate on a new patient? Do you think it's a good idea to wash your hands? What do you think? Is that common sense? It's obvious.
It's obvious.
Would he look at you like you're crazy for even having to mention that to him? Like, yeah, of course we sanitize everything before we do anything, right?
Yeah.
Obvious, right? So have doctors always done that? What do you think?
No.
Or was there a time where doctors didn't wash their hands?
It was,
And then eventually they figured out, it might be a good idea to wash our hands before we operate on someone.
it was I think American give them a checklist to the doctors in hospitals, like the checklist of washing the hands before the surgery. And all of them said, what the fuck? Do you think that me as a doctor, I need a checklist to wash my hands?
Right.
And after that, they accepted. They see what is the word when there is something that not good for your after the surgery. Infection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they saw that, oh my God, like, because there is no checklist, we forgot some part, like wash my hands, but not completely because I'm...
Okay, so you think it's just carelessness, like they know they're supposed to, but they forget to?
Yeah, something like this, because,
Okay.
yeah, or I don't know, but probably checklist was for that. So less infections after the surgery happen.
But that still implies that they know that they should wash their hands, right? But do you think maybe there was a time when even doctors, medical professionals didn't know it was a good idea to clean things before putting them in human bodies?
Probably it was.
Yeah.
But I know before finding the alcohol for the cleaning, not vodka, definitely they didn't, like just maybe morning water, something like this, but that water now is not acceptable. Like just water,
Yeah.
I mean hot water.
So one of the most important medical breakthroughs was from a guy named Semmelweis, I believe, I forget what year, who realized that you could dramatically reduce the amount of post-operative infections by forcing doctors to wash their hands before doing surgery. And he was ridiculed for this belief by the medical community at the time. Hungarian physician and scientist, what year? 1818 is when he was born. So in the mid-1847, he proposed washing hands with chlorinated lime solutions.
Then?
In 1847. When he did so, the mortality rate of the mothers being operated on in the midwife ward where he worked dropped from 18% to less than 2%. All because he started suggesting everyone you should sanitize your hands, wash your hands before you operate on mothers. And everybody opposed to that. They ridiculed him. They thought he was crazy. They thought it was like superstition or something because they didn't understand germs the way we do, right? They didn't understand the concept of invisible living creatures that cause infections, right? And so now this thing that we consider obvious, same thing, when you go to the bathroom, wash your hands. You don't know what kind of shit might be on your hands. And if other people eat that or get it on them, it could cause health problems for them. Same thing. You could transfer one infection from one patient to another if you don't sanitize properly, or just even germs that are around that are innocuous normally, but if they get inside a human body once it's been cut open, people didn't understand this shit, right?
Yeah.
Now it's common sense. Neither you nor I have medical training, yet this is obvious to us, right? This isn't something special we had to study to understand, right? It's just obvious now. It's common sense now. Everybody just knows it, right? But virtually everything we consider common sense, obvious now that everybody just knows, even without studying it, at one point was not known by anyone. At most, you might have a general instinct like, hey, poo smells bad. I don't want my hands to smell bad. So if I get poo on my hands, maybe I should wash it off. Like, maybe that's as far as our primitive caveman ancestors, which of course is why we evolved for poo to smell bad, because it's like our body telling us, hey, that's bad, stay away from it. We don't like it. It's like this instant, food smells good, eat it. Food smells bad, stay away from it. Very simple association there, right? Right. And so the whole point of this pamphlet that Thomas Paine wrote and deliberately called Common Sense is he is trying to communicate a non-obvious truth as though it were something obvious that everyone should just know. And it's the kind of truth that we consider obvious today that most of the people in the developed world consider obvious, though not quite everyone in the developing world has figured this out yet. The obvious truth that it is okay for people to govern themselves, and in fact it is preferable, that you don't need someone else making the rules of your life for you. In his case it was a king, but it could be any kind of political leader. A dictator or a chairman or a Tsar or a Führer, or even a president. Or a prime minister. So we consider that, especially Americans or people who spiritually identify as Americans, such as yourself, that's obvious to us. If you tried to convince the average American, hey, have you ever considered that you might need a dictator running your life? They'd look at you like you were crazy, in the same way that if you tried to tell a doctor, a modern doctor, hey, maybe you should stop washing your hands before surgery. They'd look at you like you're crazy, because obviously it's a very good idea to wash your hands before surgery, and it's a very good idea not to have a dictator in your life. Why? Because we have learned that it is possible for people to govern themselves, and in fact, it is vastly preferable for them to do so. But at one point, that was not obvious, and because of the efforts of people like Thomas Paine, who sparked revolution in America, this was written 6 months before the Declaration of Independence, he made this brand new concept seem appealing to people. Like, it was obvious. Everyone, of course, we don't need a king telling us what to do anymore. We're totally capable of governing ourselves. We should break away and become independent from England, which at the time was a very dangerous idea. It's not like he was the first person who ever thought we should be independent. It's just that nobody ever thought that would be a good idea. The concept existed, but it was like this controversial, dangerous, ridiculous thing. Like, people would ridicule you if you said America should be independent from England, because obviously we need a king telling us what to do. Right? Obviously.
Right. But also, it was not an alternative before that. Yeah, like after the US, it was like, why not be like US, the republic system? But you waited for the first time, you know?
Yeah, we successfully implemented this idea for the first time.
Yeah, so maybe also it was not something that, an example, like there was not soap in the shopping to buy. So first you should make
so or when you see other people who have already done something, it becomes much more socially acceptable for you to consider doing that thing too. If you think no one has ever done it, most people, except for revolutionary people with a mindset for revolution who are extremely outgoing and willing to take risks and try new things, will only do what they see other people doing. Right? And once it has become normal, then you give yourself permission to do the same thing or think the same thing.
Morning.
So
the camera.
This is very appropriately on camera is the term. You are on camera. This is very appropriately titled because essentially what Thomas Paine was doing by writing and spreading common sense, the pamphlet, is that he was trying to make a new idea seem like common sense. Like, isn't it obvious that we should be independent from England? And if he had not done this, the American Revolution as we know it would not have happened. There probably still would have been a war. There still would have been people angry with the king or saying, you need to treat us better, you need to tax us less, you need to give us more representatives or something. But the idea of America becoming its own independent country without a king would not have happened without Thomas Paine making the idea seem like common sense. And the world as we know it today, and everything that has happened as a result of America becoming independent, also would be very, very different. We would have a very different political paradigm today everywhere in the world if Thomas Paine had not written and spread this. That's why I'm saying common sense is one of the most important historical documents ever written.